So today we're going to have another little investigation into the Jane phenomenon because, well, I've been speaking about Jane with people who know her and they keep saying she does this, she does that, she's like this, she's like that. And Jane looks at her and goes, no, I don't do that. So, the biggest problem in all this is that it's up to me to ask the questions. And I do get a little bit stuck with what will I ask. Is it this? Is it that? Anyway, Jane's process, and I will say it's kind of a journey in a way, is she doesn't think or know before the moment. It's in the moment, and she gets a strong sensation in the moment. Is that correct? Yes, no, of a question.
Yes, yes, and no.
There you go. Yet again, not a simple answer.
Well, I don't know that is there a definitive answer? That's maybe people are looking, or whoever is trying to say that they know or whatever, is looking for a definitive answer. And maybe there's not one. Maybe there's lots of variables in whatever is going on in that moment.
Yes. And I will say though, there are some things though that are definitely not what you're doing that I think is maybe the more relevant part. Like, for instance, I would say I get a sensation from the land. I get land talking to me, and other land I don't. And yet if I ask you, is that the land? You've said, no, it's not the land. It's not the animals talking to you. In fact, it's utterly within you. And so I mean, that in itself is a huge difference. And you would say, you've said things to me like people are taking from the land and the land is giving to them, like energetically speaking. And I've always gone, what does that mean? Because you walk out in the land and you feel good. It's not like you've gone, give it to me, I'm raping you, land, to feel better. And it, of course, has no problem giving it to you either, let's say, because it just does it in the same way as a dog wags its tail because it just does. But I wonder, do you have some other clarification around that? That's why you wouldn't say the land is speaking to you?
It's probably in the very early days, I probably did speak like that because that's what I thought it was. And then as I've gone along, it's more that it's something that happens within inside me. So it's like there's a level that you can get to within yourself where you are then, people talk about being one with everything. And what I hear is there's a lot of talking external to become one with everything. What I've learned is there's a place within yourself where you can be one with everything, but it's an internal feeling. It's not an external feeling.
So I'm going to stop you in that moment because I had a thought. Mm-hmm. So when I see people going to gurus, because I've watched this, because my education when I was raised was pretty similar in a way to what you're saying, in that everything actually comes from your universe and you are self-determined in your way you interact with the world around you. You manifest the world around you through your own, whatever it is that you're doing, your own dramas or positive thoughts or whatever it is that would be. And when I go to guru sort of people looking at gurus, I observe them almost going into oh God, somebody else is taking over this burden for me. I don't have to make the decisions anymore. Somebody else is making them for me, because it is exhausting being responsible for yourself. So I kind of get that. And when I was quite young, I had that, and I noticed they're just swooning in adoration of this person who was willingly taking on that responsibility. And I got more and more upset with the guru because I thought, look at what you're doing. You're getting them to abnegate responsibility for their own journey in the world. And they were so happy about it. And then later on in that evening, after we'd spent a whole day with this guy who assiduously didn't answer any of my questions when I put my hand up and did answer everybody else's, but I was very aware of him avoiding me in the room. Like I could feel him avoiding me. And then afterwards, all this group that I was hanging out with that were, blissfully going on about this guru for months before he came. And then he was there. Oh my God, our guru is here. And they all got stoned. And I was like, I don't do drugs. I never had, particularly then when I was, 18, 19, I was really staunchly anti-drug. Now I'm like, look, you do what you do. I was like, oh, they're really like it's really affected them, because that I can see they really let go of their responsibility into this man. And he has willingly said, yeah, hey, I'm the man follow me. I'm the ego. Everything's about me. You do what I say. I'm the one that creates the universe. And I was like, well, this is kind of like, it's a bit like what people follow presidents and they follow leaders in any description. It's always this, can somebody else do this thing that I can't do? And I think the thing that I keep wanting to get to with you personally is that there are things that I can't do. And I see that you've kind of worked out how to do them for you, and you may not be able to help me do them for me, but maybe I will glean something through these talks that will help me refine the thing I'm not doing. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's interesting. What jumped out at me from what you said then was how it's hard to take responsibility for yourself. And I totally can understand that. But on another level, it's so much easier taking responsibility for yourself than taking responsibility for everyone else. And I guess
Absolutely.
that was a defining moment for me in everything that I've been through in my life. And the last thing that I wanted was guru status, which is what was happening back in the day with the people relying on me for the help with the animal nutrition side of things. There's nothing worse than when people actually depend on you to actually give them the answers that they're seeking, which is only because that's what we're taught from the time whatever age it is, it varies.
Parents,
Everything.
teachers,
We are
everyone
taught
to
to
follow.
depend on someone else. Yep.
Mm.
Follow. We don't really learn how we can just be ourselves, be responsible for ourselves, and then actually get to feel what that feels like. And it's a really different feeling to actually get to that level and know that you can trust yourself. Where so many people trust other people and then they get led down the garden path and then they're not happy with the decisions they make, or they're totally responsible on someone else's information or decisions or whatever. There's so many words you could put in there. And then it's like they can't do anything unless they have that person there or many people helping them to make those decisions. So that's probably a really, like you just highlighting that's probably a fundamental point as to what I actually realized in myself. I know what it feels like to take other people's stuff so that they don't feel burdened. Been through it, done it. You end up flat. You end up with no energy at all. Part of the journey for me to understand what energy is to me.
You could do it though. You could do it though.
Oh, I could do it. I can do that at any time I want to. If I want to, I could go and take someone else's, whatever they feel burdened with, like what you were saying, if it's too much for them, I could go take that. But that's not my stuff. So what do I do with it when I do take it? And that's what I started to understand. Well, that's not my stuff to process. And again, I look at that as in an energetic sense. That's that person's energy. It's not my person's energy. And then again, there's another level. Well, there's a whole, all energy is the same when you really get to understand. But in where we all are as individuals, energy is all different. It is whatever it is and has been created by that person or what that person's learnt. And that's the bit that's difficult to explain and get an understanding of for people to, it's like there's parts to it, but then on another level, there's no parts to it. So how do you explain?
There's a little couple of things that have come up to me in this. So I was thinking about when you employ somebody, I want to get my irrigation done. I don't even want to know how the irrigation's done. I'm like, can you go and put the irrigation in and get it all working? And I just turn the switch. Yep. And so you're paying for a service. So let's say I say to you, I want to get you to get my animal's nutrition right. I'll do whatever you tell me. And so I pay you for a service to do that. And it's no sweat to you. You can do it in a second. And so there's a part of me that would say, well, that's kind of the service that they were paying for by engaging you. And I wonder how much of what you're trying to do now with people in your role is resisted or resented by people because they don't want to do it. They want somebody else to do it. They want somebody else. I mean, even me, when I'm saying, I find it frustrating when I get a little bit closer to what I think might put it in a hole for me, make me understand it, get on top of it. And you go, nope, it's not that. I just feel like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. I want to understand this. And I'm struggling with that. And it's just, after a while, I start feeling like, oh, forget it. I'll just never understand it. I can't work this out. So I kind of feel like there's a little bit of that at play in this. And I wonder, when you're talking with your clients, do you feel that, or do you feel a genuine desire on their part to not have to rely on you?
Probably because I'm choosing to put it out there that people don't need to rely on me. That's what I'm starting to attract. Again, like somebody coming in and putting in irrigation in. If you don't want to learn how to do that, you just pay someone to do it. It's done. Like rather than trying to, there's plenty of people out there that would try to learn how to do that before they did it. And then the frustration they go through just because maybe they don't want to pay somebody to do it is yeah, it causes all sorts of dramas for some people.
But you can learn how to do it and not do it. So,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I would want to learn what the irrigation person was doing. So if there was a small maintenance fix, I don't have to pay to get them back out again. And I suppose that's a little bit like what I'm saying with you. I would want you to fully do it so I could observe what you were doing and see what part of that can I innately, naturally, intuitively do by myself so that I don't have this, for me, burden of how do I do it all by myself? I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yep. So the first part of that is that you are learning, and everything that I do now when I do work with people is to empower them to be able to work through things themselves. There's no point me just being the person that everyone has to come to when they have an issue that they need to deal with, or they don't know how to solve a problem within themselves. So there's a process to that. And I'm wondering whether, is it that you're trying to understand how I work rather than understand how you work, using some of the tools that maybe I've developed through understanding this so that you can find what it is that's unique about you, not trying to understand what's unique about me.
No, I definitely take that on. I'll give you an example. The last, we talked about healing something in me, and you went, no, I get Sam's not to heal herself. And I thought, yeah, well, maybe that explains why I can't do this, that, and the other. And then I went and I was listening to a podcast and I heard of some particular thing that would help cardiovascular dilation and blah, blah, blah. And I went and bought the thing and I tried it out. It was a nitric oxide, which is a key element in the body. And I put the pendulum over it and it did nothing. It didn't say yes, it didn't say no. I couldn't get a definitive anyway. And I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to try it because how do I really tell things is I put them in my body and I see what it does for me. And either goes yes or as I work with it, or it goes no. Now, I didn't like it initially. But I woke, and the first night I took it, it was like I was really disturbed all night. And then I noticed the next day I woke up, I had energy. And when I did a lot of exercise, I had more energy. Like it was talked about how it feeds the mitochondria. It's the element in every cell in the body. And I went, well, see, that it kind of I went completely against everything that I've been working with pendulums. And even a pendulum for me is outside of me. Like it's like going, well, the pendulum's doing it. Why is it saying yes? Why is it saying no? I don't understand that. So there's a part of me that was, and other times when it goes really, really strongly, yes, I go, yeah, I agree with that. So, and other times I go, I have no idea where it said no to that. And I just disagree with it when it says no. So I would say, even if I'm using a pendulum, I'm only using it out of curiosity, not because I actually really believe it. It's kind of interesting to me. And a lot about what you do or whatever it's interesting to me because I think there is many ways to skin a cat. People that can get something to work however they do it, I think that's great. Some people do things just by sheer will. Other people, completely believe something their doctor tells them. And because they completely believe what their doctor tells them, it works. And I go, good on them. Like, you should do what makes you feel good. Like, to me, following your beliefs is a line somebody said, and I thought that's the best overall thing I could see is if that feels good, you should do that. That's the only thing I've looked in the mysteries of life of looking at humanity and why things work and why some people live long and why somebody who's doing everything right drops dead riddled with cancer and why somebody who's doing everything wrong lives to 96. And you go, there's something innately they're doing when it works that is they're happy about. That's the only thing I can think. They're convinced they're happy. Whether they're right or wrong, I don't think matters.
And I would agree with that because it depends on how people feel about themselves. And beliefs are a huge part of that. Like if you're trying to do something, by the way, pendulum doesn't work for me either. at all. It's about finding tools. If that's the way, like that was part of my journey, that I needed something so that I didn't have to take on people's energy to work with them. I needed a tool that I could work with. So muscle testing was my tool. It was a way that I could be checking what was popping into me as I was working with someone and going, is this something that I need to say to me? Which I'm all doing. That's sort of all happening underneath. Like, it's not necessarily that I'm voicing every single thing that is flowing through me, but I'd be able to go, is this something I need to say to the person? Is this something for me? Do I ask the question this way? All that's going on while I'm actually talking to somebody. That's become, even the muscle testing is not as big a thing to me now as what it was in the early days. Like when I first started working with people, I would literally just muscle test every single thing while I was talking to the person to ensure that I wasn't actually doing what I used to do and taking their stuff on. And it was part of me learning how I could be me, allow them to be them, and then work as a guide to help them to understand things that they could understand about themselves so that they could bring themselves into balance, identify when they were out of balance and bring themselves back into balance when they were out. And again,
So
the other thing, yep.
what do you do to edit out? Let's say I interviewed Terry recently and he was like 90 something percent is the subconscious and it runs you. And I mean, I can see within some people that would be true, but everybody has, let's say, thoughts or experiences or stuff that they're not particularly conscious of that are things that are negative energy fields that are not pro survival for you really anymore because they were there for, it's fire, runaway, limbic brain sort of early stuff. And how, which I'm sure you do have those things happen in your universe, how do you edit that out? Know that that one is not me, that one is me. That one is something I need to listen to. That one's something I shouldn't.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that language, I don't really understand that language because it's not how I've learned what I've learned. Like conscious, subconscious, unconscious, I can understand those as words, but what that actually means, I don't really understand it. When you say negative energy or negative feeling, that I understand. And that is something that I would straight away go, hearing that, I go, well, why don't you want to work with the negative energy?
Well, it
We
might be
have,
relevant. No,
yeah,
I know that, but I remember you told me a story once about being on a piece of land and there was negative energy in the land from something that had happened. Some people had died or there was some, I don't know, whatever it was. I actually forget the story, but there was something that was drawing you to a part of some farmer's land and you said, did this happen here? And you just kept questioning and you found a whole story came out of
yeah,
it for some reason.
which is the old way that I used to work. And that's got to be, so I do need to be really careful about how I used to work and
Yes,
how I work now.
which I don't know.
No, I know. And so that was the way that I did used to work because I used to ask external questions and I used to just get guided when I was just working with animals and landscape and not so much the people work, although, as we've said, the people work has always been part of it, just not as big a part as what it is now. So now I only do people work first. So any farmer I work with the people first. Once the people have an understanding and are empowered to actually learn the way that I've learned to work, and it's not that they're going to ever be me, but learn how they can work with asking questions in their environment with whatever is going on at the time, then I will go out with them and I'll work with them and ask questions as to if something is going on. And this is where words are just so limiting to me. You say one word and people grab that word and they hang on to that word like crazy. But you said this and you said this. And I don't deny that there was a lot of things that I would have said as I was going along. So when I worked external, I used to just get guided to, I just asked a question and and that was my muscle testing. I'd be guided to a certain spot. And then it was what actually happened on that spot. Don't know. We could just ask questions and usually there would be, the other person would be asking questions as well and we'd be getting yeses, nos, whatever. And through that understanding, which was really, it was still to help the person I was working with understand something in a way that they could relate to it. And then somehow there would be where it was maybe the energy was blocked there, all of a sudden it would start to flow. There would then be changes in the environment. I don't know how to explain that. Like, why did that happen? How did it happen? If I just talk energy, I do understand how to explain it, because there was just something, and I could look at that as, one of the words that was very much used was imprinting. And if piece of earth was imprinted on, that could cause a blockage. What causes that imprint? I don't really know. I can sit there and I can actually ask the question and get an understanding, but there's no point me doing that by myself. So what I do is work with the people that are the carers of that piece of earth, and they then get an understanding. It can be that maybe I would understand it different to them, but as long as it works in with what they believe, it's going to work. It doesn't have to be what I believe.
Okay, I'm gonna go along another line. Let's say it's not someone's land, which I can understand that there's a whole relationship. Let's say you're walking along the street and you're in a city somewhere and you walk under a tunnel and you get a really like bad feeling, like something's going to happen, or maybe in the future or past or whatever, and you just don't feel good there. And another person working through that tunnel doesn't feel anything.
Yep.
Are you saying that that is something that the person walking through is manifesting out of their own stuff? Are you saying that's something that's actually in the tunnel? Is it saying it's something that someone has out for them that's energetically picking up on the same wave field as them, and that's what they're feeling? I mean, that's the part I'm trying to work out.
The only
where is
thing
it
that
coming from?
I know there, so if there's two people, one person picks up on something, the other person doesn't. The person that is feeling whatever they're feeling can work through that within themselves right there. Now, it's a matter of, are they in balance? Are they out of balance? Is there like a trauma response because they don't like being in dark tunnels, whereas the other person doesn't mind that? Is there just something that is in them that is triggered by walking through there? Is there something that they are picking up on and there is a need to be, in fear of something? But by checking back in with self first, you're actually going to know, is this just something I need to work through? And again, this is where my muscle testing, if that had happened to me, that same example, my muscle testing would have come in there and I would have went, is this something that I need to work through? I would have got a yes. If I got a no, it would be, I would just keep asking questions. So with our last talk, there was a bit where I said that asking questions, there is a real art to asking questions. There is closed questions, there's open questions, and it's also the context of the question. So when there's 1, 2, 3, whatever people actually trying to understand something to get understanding, context is really important. One person might need like more words in the question than another person might need. And that's just because of where they are in themselves. Someone that's probably very heady and needs to, that loves reading, that just loves absorbing information, more than likely will need more context in their question than somebody that's probably not necessarily so tied into having to have all this information. And somebody that maybe is worried about being wrong as opposed to right, they're going to need more context, because a lot of people take things to heart. It may not even be a question that is directed at somebody, but they actually take it to heart. They take it personally. And yet the way the question is framed is not necessarily directed at anyone personally, but it's sometimes does need to be to get an understanding of what's really going on within each individual. Thinking about us catching up today, and one of the biggest things I find with pretty much predominantly most of the people that I have worked with or work with is people like to blame someone else for whatever is happening in their life. Now, whether that leads back to what, was said right in the beginning of this interview and not wanting to take responsibility of self, it very much could. So it's easier to go and blame someone else for how someone feels. So if I feel like shit, back in the day, I would have went and blamed someone else for how I feel, rather than going, I feel like shit. Why do I feel like shit? What is it I can change in me so I don't feel like shit? It's that.
Can I go back to the point though, that if you felt like shit because, let's say that example that you don't do anymore, where the land actually had an imprinted negative thing that was really powerfully impacting on you in some way, even though you
and
weren't
it could
aware
be
of
a
it.
positive thing. So it doesn't have to be, I just
Could
want
be
to,
negative or positive, but my
I
point
just
being
want to put
an
that
energy
because,
wave, whatever it is.
Yep.
Your point being, I suppose, and the part that I was trying to get at was, checking in with yourself and deciding, is that something I need to address or not?
Mhm.
Is it also, let's just say you wanted to address it, even though it wasn't necessarily, maybe you're walking through the tunnel example, and I can sense this negative energy. Maybe you have it really, really strongly, and I can, oh yeah, I get it. It doesn't mean anything to me. But I can see other people are really picking up on it, and it's drawing in more negative energy to it as a wave field. And I can actually put light into the area, like whatever word you want to use to, and I can kind of change the energy field personally, and I can have the other person feel that. And I'm saying, well, there's several things that I go along with that going, well, did I do that? Or did they just agree with me? Or was it not really there? Or do you know what I mean? Like there's so many different ways that just as energy, what is
Oh,
actually occurring?
well, there is. And then so that, sort of just in the context of what you're saying is that it's like you're doing an outward speak. So you're speaking that you're changing the environment external, where I guess I don't speak like that. I'm not looking to change the environment external because I actually don't see that it is about the environment externally or whatever is going on. I see that it's about how one feels within themselves. So you could bring that. So if a lot of people will use negative feeling. And I really, that's probably where it really that's the pull, because it's like it's like there's a fear of this word negative. There's a fear of this negative
Well,
fear.
let's not call it negative
No,
then.
but
Let's
it's
just
good to
call it,
call it this. It
well,
is good to call
I
it.
would call it dark or light for a different way of wording it.
Yeah, but it's still the same. Like whether you call it
Yeah,
negative,
okay.
it's still the same. And this
I
is
see that.
so there's a polar opposite, which we don't need to change the speak to be able to get an understanding. It's better if we stay with it, with the
Okay.
same speak, than changing it. So yeah, you can put, for a negative feeling, you can put dark, light, whatever. And some people will have a negative feeling that is light. Some people will have a negative feeling that is dark. So everyone is different. We could bring it down to what's comfortable and what's uncomfortable. So
What
there's
they
a lot
love.
of people that have not and will not take responsibility of themselves because they do not want to feel a comfortable or an uncomfortable feeling because they don't know how to do it. It is not in their, it's like it's not in their, I feel like I want to say DNA to actually do that. They want to repel it. So then they're only ever experiencing one side of something. They're never getting to experience what this feels like and what that feels like. So there's in a lot of my work, it is duality. It is, if you feel like this, what does it feel like to feel like that? And a lot of people, to begin with, they don't want to do that. That is, they can't even feel. Most people, I'm flabbergasted that I've met so many people that cannot feel. And if someone can't feel, the journey to be able to feel is a slower process. Now, that means that they're just so shut down that to feel anything is,
But it's safety, isn't it? That's what they're doing. They're protecting themselves in some way. Something's like I've met people in their late, years, 40, 50, and they've never been in love, never felt the sensation of love, have never been in love. And you go, wow, really? How did you manage to do that? Because it's kind of like takes over you. It's not like, oh, I would have said it's not something you could even control. You meet someone and suddenly you just butterflies all over and you just can't help yourself. And the fact that people have gone, no, I've never felt that. I go, wow, how could you be so shut down that you've never felt it? And then you find out maybe they did something in their childhood where it was beaten out of them. So they learn to not feel anything. So I would say not feeling anything would be a profoundly child trauma of some description.
Well, it could be that it's even deeper than that and that it is pre-being born. Yeah, there's so many variables. Like every single person is an individual, and whatever has happened within them and whatever's been created in them is whatever it is. And if somebody doesn't want to feel, they don't have to feel. But if somebody had never felt the feeling of the butterflies and whatever, which most people sometime in their life do get to feel, then I would say that they don't love themselves either. Yeah, and there's another bit is there's people that think they feel and there's people that feel. And there's a real difference for people that feel. When I work with them, it is like snap fingers stuff. There is something that just changes so quickly. It's almost like when I speak to them, it's like they get, and it's not from me, but because I'm able to maybe resonate with something that they haven't wanted to resonate within themselves because they're trying to be like other people, they all of a sudden give themselves permission to just feel. But when you just feel and you work with your feelings, which means not just choosing positive or negative or light or dark, it's
What
working
is?
with the whole lot of it and everything in between. That's feeling. Words, yeah, the words are, I don't know. I don't know how to even put it into words because
Well, it sounds to me like you're talking about um, the people that you can do that with. That's their language,
that
like
they can do, yeah, that they
that
can just allow themselves to open up so
yeah,
quickly to. It is their language.
because some, they talk about people that are kinesthetic and auditory and feeling and all that sort of thing. So it's possibly that that's just their language, the way they're wired for whatever reason, to be able to sense that. And that's like, that goes, oh, yes, to them. Like, I know how to do that. But I didn't know how to put that into words to know that that's what I was doing. So that's possibly why that is like that. And I would imagine people on the land are, because they are working with animals and they are working with plants, and things are much more. I like to use the analogy of a dog, because a dog is always so open with its emotions. It's so
With its feelings, I would say, not a.
with its feelings. It's so obviously happy. It's so
Yeah.
obviously amusingly sad. It's so, like, they're very obvious. And we tend to gravitate towards dogs, I think, because we feel a simpatico with that. We'd like to be able to be that open, and yet society has taught us to close all that down because it's not survival for us. It's not
Well,
survival in business discussions. It's not survival in negotiations. It's not survival with bullies. You don't let your emotions show. You've got to be protecting that. So I think you're working against a very hard societal indoctrination when.
yeah, see, I think in all that, people do let something show. They let their emotions show, which is an external outburst, but they don't let their feelings show. To me, there's a real difference between emotions and feelings. It's completely, because you don't actually get emotional when you are working with your feelings, because feelings you can balance, and emotions is like something that's been created to be able to get. It's like babies are born unconditional, which is like a dog. A dog is unconditional. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't put conditions on you. That's why there's something special about a dog. Why can't we be like that? I mean, in a lot of workshops, it comes up as, like dog, reverse dog, and you get God. God is, a language that is sort of spoken about as an external thing. And look, a lot of people get offended to say God and dog in the same context. But the truth is, those letters reversed, that is what those things mean. And a dog is it's like an internal feeling. And there's not many people, there are people that are scared of dogs, 100%, because of what's happened to them in their life. But there's also people that are very scared of God. And whenever that word gets used in a sentence, there's people, and even people that, 100% believe in God, they still have this reaction. It's like,
That's an indoctrination to feel that way. That's not because that's it's this thing I can never know or see or touch, and yet it runs everything. And it's like having a policeman at every corner. It's like they can see all my thoughts and everything like that. And that's like, it's kind of the opposite of what actually it's meant to be talking about, which is that which is the creation within you. I mean, I have a different way of looking at God as a
and I
concept
have
too.
but that's how I look at it too. It's the creation within. And like, it's easier to look at it for a lot of people as dog, as being unconditional. And it is an unconditional creation that is within. As soon as we go to blame anything external of ourselves, we are not unconditional. We are making a judgment, or we are putting conditions on things. Now, conditions might be imprints. If we're saying that we know more than something that we have no understanding of. As soon as we do that, we're blocking something. We're doing something which seems to be in the world that I work in. As soon as we start to put words to things and try and explain something that this is how it is, we're blocking something. We're stopping the flow of something that doesn't need an explanation. And it is something that 100%, the one thing we can do is we can feel it. We can't necessarily speak it easily. I mean, you have a one-on-one conversation with someone and you can find a language. I can find a language when I'm one-on-one with someone that we can speak a language that we can both understand. We can find a common ground. When you speak to an audience, you're speaking to all these different people that have all got these different understandings, and they're all going to take something out of it which they will agree or disagree with, which is all 100% fine. But if there is an agree, then find a disagree. Find something within yourself to disagree with it. And if there is a disagree, then find something in yourself to agree with it. Because at least then you're looking within yourself and you're going, well, this is how this is feeling within me, and this is why I'm reacting this way. So if I look for the opposite in me, what is the possibility? That's
Would you say that's one of the key tools?
100%. That is the hardest thing to be able to speak from my perspective, to be able to speak to an audience, because everyone wants to try and understand, oh, this is what this fits into this, what I understand. They're trying to fit it into something that more than likely they have learnt external of themselves. They haven't actually learnt it internal of themselves. There is so much stuff we learn external. We read a book, we learn something from that book. We go to school, we learn something from going to school. But everything we're learning, mostly, until we actually start to choose to look within and want to learn about self, learn about what makes me tick, what upsets me, what, motivates me. But then looking at the duality of that, whatever it is. And a lot of people, when they ask questions, they'll just go down the question of, oh, I'm getting yes, so I'll just keep going with that. I'm on a roll here, rather than, well, what's the opposite if you ask that question? What do you get then? Do you still get the same answer, or
And
do you get a different
confusion
answer?
though when the person has both negative and positive answers?
No. There can be, I don't get confusion. The person I'm working with, I would have to say from their self, I would say that a lot of people I work with initially get confusion because it's not the program. And most people are working within the program that they've got. So many people are talking about, oh, negative, don't want anything to do with negative. And it is a common thing that gets said.
Okay, I've got to stop. I've got a thought. In that positive and negative, because we've spoken about it before as the duality of the universe that this is. And you're saying,
But I wouldn't even put universe in there. It's the duality of self.
I'm talking about energetic fields of positive matter, negative atoms, and like physical physics, not anything esoteric. Purely the actual reality of this physical universe is positive and negative fields in it.
From a science point of view.
From a science point of view, that's what I'm talking about. So, but in that duality, but the thing that I've lost where I was going, but the main point being, do you feel when, let's say I'm addressing something positive or negative, and you're saying, yeah, all right, you've got that bit. Let's have a look at the opposite for just to consider it. Do you find that when to balance those things, if they're out of kilter for whatever reason, that when you get the fullness of the positive against its negative, that you feel a sense of peace or calm in the middle because that's where the balance point is?
Yeah, well, everyone would go through that a bit different. But yeah, once you get the spectrum, so you get the polar opposites, then you've got all this space within that to be able to find a place within that, within yourself, to be able to, most people I hear when they get there and I say, what are you feeling? And that's not an easy thing for most people to answer, but they hesitate for a bit, which is great that they do. And then it's like they don't know initially, because it's like, I don't know, because I've never felt this. And I said, was it something that you're liking this feeling? Yeah. Like they'll sort of, because it's feeling. Like, it's not normal to them. Is probably the best way I can explain it. It's actually, what is this? But there's a, I guess, a comfortableness to it. Now, whether they can hold that, that's, they get a taste of it, and then normally they'll sort of switch off of that. They'll go back to what they're used to, because they haven't asked their own questions to get there. They have, but they haven't understood that.
It's not familiar. It's not in. No. It's not locked in with that. Well, I would say that's the same as when people meditate or do yoga or do anything where they get to a sense of, let's say, for want of a better word, stillness, and they go, oh, this is a fantastic feeling. I want to get here. Well, you can't walk through life being in stillness. So they kind of go, oh, it's only for when I meditate. So I've got to meditate every day. And I'm always going, well, that's kind of not the point. The whole point is to use that sensation that you get to and know that that's what you're kind of aiming for somehow in whatever you're doing in life. Whether
Yeah, and it's to still, like, if you use the word stillness, so there's a stillness that comes with me when I am working and when I'm working with someone. So someone that and then it's through that stillness is how I get the pop-ins, I call them, or the downloads, which usually is from them, but I get the downloads because they're blocked, like they're blocking themselves from being able to hear themselves. And I'm
So
not
let's.
saying
I think it's time to use an example for people because we've done a lot of very generalistic talking about things. So, is there an example that you can think of working with someone where this was really highlighted when because we spoke last time about the Earth moving, and there must be
the
other.
sponge. It's like the sponge was ignited. Yeah.
The sponge is ignited. So is there something I think that might be more real for people would be an animal because it's something you can see that maybe the relationship between the animal and its owner or, whether it's a dog or a horse or any sort of example of something that you've worked with that you might be able to use to talk about this, about when the person got that balance and it was obvious in the animal as well because they also became calm or did something like there was something obvious that taught that person like extra validated for them that yes that thing they're feeling is right and it was
Yeah, and I guess I try not to, it's not really with animals or anything external. It's about them being able to feel the feeling within themselves. My whole goal when I work with somebody now is to be able to get them to that they have an understanding, even if they're not able to fully hold it, they get to feel that it's possible that they can get there. That is, wow, I've never felt that before. Wow, I can do this. There is some sessions where it's one session and person gets there and they hold it. Most people, though, it takes 2 or 3 because they're very much relying on me, which feeding them the information while I'm sort of getting these downloads. And it's hard to just sort of, well, if I was to use an animal situation, like animals is probably most people care more about their animals, like their horse or their dog or their special animals than they do themselves. They'll do anything for their animal, but they won't necessarily do it for themselves. So there's been situations where dogs and people have wanted to, knowing that they need to take their dog to the vet, and then they've talked to me and I've just worked through stuff within them, and then their dog has actually changed to where it didn't need to go to the vet anymore. Now that's the dog trying to communicate to its carer or its owner, whatever word you want to put on it, trying to communicate that there's some work that they need to do. A bit like, the dogs, the healing dogs that go around and, some dogs will sit there and they can smell when somebody's got cancer or they can tell that there's something not right.
So it had a horse that did that. They were taking them into a hospital. Like I just remember hearing this wild
what
story.
was that?
They had a horse that they were taking into a hospital. It did that walked into the people that were really sick when they were about to die or they did something. The horse had this thing it was doing with the sick people.
Horses are phenomenal. And I guess that's what I like when I used to get drained, taking the people's stuff that they didn't want to be responsible for, which is so good that you brought that up in the beginning. I guess I learned that animals were doing that for us. And then that became maybe my driving force as to why are animals doing that for us? Because that's the bit that I didn't like is I don't want to put something onto an animal for it to have to fix me, for it to take my burden or what I'm just not learning or understanding about myself.
Did you observe the animals doing that?
Shit, that was everything in my early days, which is why I went away from the products, started working with the people to ask the questions, to understand why on earth are animals doing this, which was half the time I doubted myself. But I know now, I know 100% that that's what animals do. Look, and there's a grey area there because there's just some animals that, like us, that they've got a disease or they've got something that needs, medical intervention. It needs the wonderful, beautiful side of science to be able to help them to get better. Just like there's things that happen with us that we need the medical system. But then there's other things that become disease in the body because of dis-ease. It's us being separated from ourselves and not actually taking responsible for ourselves and how we feel.
And do you think that is more obvious? Like there are certain animals that is it to do with how bonded they are with the person as to that?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
are there tells, let's say, of the animal that is doing that people
Yeah.
could look for to see that they need to take more responsibility for themselves and stop dumping on their animal? So, I mean, I do feel that's a thing worth saying, because a lot of people out there are very concerned about animals. And you've said things like the animals will do it unconditionally because they just will.
They are just unconditional. So on some level, I was unconditional too. And so that's why I would take other people's stuff. They would feel better and I would feel drained. So I then had to learn about judgments and conditions. So I had to go into the human world to learn about that, because I didn't really understand what those things were. I was a feeler. I wasn't, someone that just went out there and did whatever those people do. So I've now learned how that works. And now I can speak a language to go, well, and look, if somebody wants to be unconditional, they can be unconditional. If they want to be judgmental, they can be judgmental. If they want to be conditional, they can be conditional. Whatever rocks people's boats, be whatever you want to be. If it makes you happy.
Let's keep to the animals in this instance.
Yeah, but some people are going to be happy that their animals are taking their stuff, because maybe they don't want to take responsibility for how they feel, because it's traumatizing for people to feel. It is. I'm learning just how traumatizing it is. How much of the mental illness is just because somebody doesn't want to feel and deal with their stuff. And so there's this whole world that's been created to, come up with all these cocktails to help these people. What if it's just that they are so traumatized within themselves and they don't know how to get to the point of being able to feel what might be dark or light?
Well, could it not be that they're just too weak? They don't, because we've conditioned sort of like mollycoddling. We don't do any sort of tough love anymore. And so people don't learn to suck up things and take responsibility for themselves. We abnegate responsibility so much.
Well, they're only mimicking what they're learning from the world in which they live. So it's
absolutely.
Not. So
but I'm just saying,
you're
not going to be able to turn it around very quickly.
But I would say that if we use the word weak, and if we say that it's because they're weak, that's what society has made them. But in them, it's still the strong, or whatever the opposite to weak is for them. It's in them. They've just got to find it. And so what I do is guide people to find whatever that is that they can't connect with. And once they connect with that, then they can understand the scope of what's in them, the spectrum that they have within them.
Okay, let's flip it on its ear then and look at the very, very strong that take almost maniacal level of responsibility for everything.
Yep.
How do you balance them? Because obviously,
well, then that will be the opposite, because then they need to find their weak. Because we can't just have one. If we're only strong or we're only weak, and then the other side with that, there's a catch with that, because somebody that's strong and then finds, if that's what they want to do and they want to see what it feels like to feel weak, they can very easily go from strong to weak and then get stuck in weak, just like they might have been stuck in strong. So there's a delicate process there to go through
not
that.
overwhelming the person. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not about strong or weak at the end.
I understand that.
Yeah, but that's still a really important thing, because a lot of people will sit there and they'll go, oh, I'm one of those people, I'm really strong. So in me is I can find, and it might not even weak, might not even resonate with them. That could be
I was using the word. Yeah.
No, I know. But when we use words, we need to really just emphasize the point that I chose the word strong. And I chose the word weak. You chose weak. I chose strong. So between us, we can have that conversation. But someone else might sit there, and if I said to them, what's your opposite of strong? They can come up with something.
I was actually taking the word responsibility, saying taking full responsibility. And one could look at that with all of society around, saying the more someone takes responsibility, the better they are. So if I'm standing as a CEO or a leader in some role and I'm taking full responsibility, then I'm the good guy. I'm the one on top of the heap. I'm doing the extra hard miles. So why would I ever look at anything other than that? Particularly if everybody is acknowledging me, saying that's a great thing to do. In this conversation between us, what we're saying is it may not be, because you haven't actually embraced the full scope within you to say that thing you're doing, awesome, but there is this other bit that you maybe are not looking at, because you don't want to suddenly weaken yourself and no longer be strong. And really, I think the point that we're trying to say is that when you look at that other side, you actually end up being doubly strong, because you've got both sides, then that's really where the strength is, not being 100% one or 100% the other.
No, it's about a balance of both, and then being able to recognize when, if you want, you can be strong when you need to be strong, and you can be weak when you need to be weak, or you can just be a balance of both. And it's not about a flatline balance. Oh, I'm
No.
just going to sit in the middle of that, and I'm not going to be strong and I'm not going to be weak. That would be so boring to live like that.
Mm.
Be so boring.
Well, I observe in you, as a compliment to you, that I have observed you go from not sure to certain. They're the two extremes I would observe in you. And what I've seen it give you is flexibility, freedom to be whatever you want to be, wherever you want to be, and not be affected. You know, you've got some heavy things happening in your personal life, and not be like, that's going to take me down. You've been like, that's that person's thing. I'll be there supporting them, all the things that you want to choose to do, but you're not going to still let it shake your equilibrium in the middle. And that actually gives you so much more power to assist and help anywhere, because you've got the mask on. You've got your own air mask on the airplane going down. You're already there because you've got that certainty happening in your universe, is what I observe with you.
Yeah, and I don't feel, with what is going on in my life at the moment with my husband going through cancer, I actually don't feel traumatized by that. I don't feel affected by that at all. Previously, I can understand how I would have been, because I know it's his journey, and I'm a very different person to my husband. He has his beliefs and I have mine. I'm so grateful that I have him in my life, because he probably, doesn't necessarily agree with everything that, I understand, because he hasn't been through what I've been through. I'm very much from the country and he's from the city. It's very interesting when you put a city person and a country person together, because there is differences in the way that you do look at life and what one values to what another values. I'm not really attached to a lot of things. I appreciate and have lots of love, gratitude and respect for whatever is in my life, but I'm not really attached to things. And I remember when AJ asked me that question, it was really asking me, where do I live? Where's home, is what he said to me. And the first thing that came out was, right here, home is here. And I totally 100%, that's what I feel. Wherever I am home. So I can be anywhere and I can be home.
And you never feel like a fish out of water. You never feel, I'm in the wrong spot. Wherever I am, I want to just get home to my house by myself and be by myself in a space, a physical universe space. Like, you say you're a country person, but if you were sitting in the middle of Manhattan and you had to be there for a month, you'd be fine.
Yeah, I'd be fine, because my space is in me. So I can create all the space that I need.
That's super cool. And you could be in amongst a whole lot of thugs or murderers or negative things, and you'd still be just being you. This is a state of absolute zen to get to this point, because people do get shaken off their thing when they're put in different environments. And I think it's the state of consciousness that we're all actually trying to get to, where we are always home within ourselves, wherever we are. And I would say, even I, who am pretty good at it, I get shaken off. And then I go, why am I shaken off? Like, why can I not find that? And I go, it's because I'm missing my family, or I'm missing my friends, or I'm missing my creature comforts, or I'm missing the quiet of my house, or like, I can look at those things and see that there's a part of my body that is getting distressed by, let's say, constant noise. I find constant noise quite exhausting because I'm not used to it.
Yeah, but then there's something within you that you haven't actually been able to change within you, so that
doesn't come in.
Yeah, because the noise could be there. So you can't change what's outside of yourself. That's the one thing with this. I can't change anything outside, nothing. But I can change anything, snap fingers, that quickly within me. So if there is something, I'm not saying there's stuff that, if I get annoyed by something, I'm not going to go blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to go, okay, why am I annoyed? What can I do? What can I change within me to not be annoyed by that? And if I need to be annoyed by it, if there's something, well, then I will figure that out and I'll understand it. But I know that I can change something in me straight away. I don't have to sit there and talk to every single person in a room. I can just be me. And if I end up connecting with somebody and talking about something, then that's fine. But I don't have to join into conversations that don't resonate with me either. And I don't feel like I
Okay, so
have to be.
I can think of a time we were talking about something that happened to you where you weren't being acknowledged in something, and we ended up discussing it, that it actually had really upset you, and you didn't realize at the time even necessarily
Yep.
how it was upsetting you. And so we spoke for quite a long time that day. I think it
Yep.
was many hours. But what did you learn in yourself about that, in terms of, let's say, not recognizing that you were upset or not doing anything about something you maybe could have changed? Or what did you experience in that as a learning thing?
I learnt that I needed to, and it's probably really, we've done these two podcasts since, that I needed to speak for me, not necessarily having other people speak for me. And it was
Good.
also that I needed to feel that, which
Yes.
is probably where I hadn't felt that to that level, because I probably hadn't let myself go there. And then it also helped me to realize just how important it is, what I have discovered through working this way, how important it is. And I really do need to speak up about it now. And that'll make me tears, because I was hesitant. I was hesitant to speak it, because pretty much every time I speak out loud and say things to an audience, people then go and put it into the box that they want to put it in. And there's lots of things where that has been done, but no one's coming direct to me and asking me the questions that they want to know for themselves. It's not about for the audience. The more that people ask questions, the more that the audience will get to understand things, because it is something that I didn't learn any of this from reading books. I didn't learn it by, as we said before, by words like conscious or all this understanding that's supposedly out there that now science has figured out. I didn't learn any of it that way. I don't understand those words. I really don't understand big words, because it's not the way that I've worked. I left school halfway through year 10 because I just had enough of it. It did not resonate with me. Now, whether I should have done that or shouldn't have done that, it doesn't matter. I have no regrets for everything that I've learnt, but everything basically comes through me, and every single bit of it, I live it. I live my life as I communicate with other people.
And do you feel other people, I mean, I feel you're trying to teach something very profound in your activities that you're doing in helping people get to that point. Do you feel that, I feel this is a time when we're ready for that, particularly with the AI coming in to sort of do more of the mechanical parts of our thinking and doingness in the world? I think this thing that you're doing is very timely. And do you feel that you are exponentially getting more ability to show people how to find that themselves?
Yeah, and I feel like I can do that quicker than what I ever have before. I'm grateful that I did start to do a few workshops, because a lot of people, I didn't realize how fearful people were to do a one-on-one, like to actually engage with me. Some people just love the one-on-one straight up, but that's very few people. More people will actually sit with a group. And as they sit with a group, it's like they've so programmed to mimic other people in the group. But that's okay, because it's through that they're learning something about themselves. And then when you've been to a workshop, you only came to the very first one. They're quite different now. But in that,
I'll come again, I promise.
no, it's okay. Don't need to. But it's, I guess, because I've learned too that, let them go and mimic. And then they start to go, that didn't quite work for me. And then I'm able to go, well, yeah, because you're not that person and you're not that person. And so the dynamics of the workshop is really intriguing. Most people then do need a one-on-one after, but then they've met me and they've got an understanding, but it's confronting for people. This is confronting, because it is, do I want to be responsible for myself? And until people want to be responsible and choose that, they're not going to go down this path.
But
No way.
I will say, though, Jane, as someone who's insanely focused on wanting to be responsible for self, that I've found it very difficult too. And so even when that fear is not in the way, So I'm not scared of finding that. I would still say it's difficult what you're teaching. I mean, maybe you've moved and it's better with other people and I'm too heady, but
But with head people, it is harder. It
yeah,
is 100%
which is,
harder for
which is
someone that
most
is,
city people, I have to say.
well, not necessarily, because I've met some city people that, yeah, it just depends on well, does it come down to whether people are scared of their feelings or not? So if somebody is scared of their feelings, they might not even know that that is what it is. It is harder for them to work through things because it's like they're scared to feel what needs to be felt. They would feel it a little bit, but that's enough. Whatever it is, there's a little bit, and then they'll get more braver, and then they'll get more braver. The more I speak about it, the better it's going to be, because it's not going to be like it's something that's hidden away.
Mhm.
That's what I really, really, really got from when you and I had that talk, which we didn't record that.
Yeah, we did one in between.
Yeah, but I really got from that. I have to speak up, and I need to find a way as to be able to speak what it is that I have understood, find a way to put it into a language that other people can understand. But I can't just sit there and go, oh yeah, just put it into that language, just put it into that box.
Well, surely it's different for everybody too.
And
Some
it is
people
different for everybody.
need a different communication.
There's not one conversation I've ever had that is the same as with anybody else. And while I've got tools and techniques, those tools and techniques get custom blended for each and every person. So they're custom blending them as they go along. Oh yeah, that works for me.
So
I can work with it like that.
let's say you've got people listening to this that are never going to talk to you for whatever reason, but they would
That's
like to
fine.
find a way to do that themselves. What would you suggest is some of the first things to start to look at, which is what you did for your journey?
First thing is, probably a couple of things. If you need to blame others for how you're feeling, whether you are thinking you're feeling or feeling, doesn't really matter. But if you need to blame others for whatever is going on in you, then stop. So the first thing you do is just stop and actually start to think about what you're doing, and maybe just see whether you can turn that around on yourself. If you can do that, you're ready for some form of transformation within yourself. How you go about that, it's not about talking to me. Just trust whatever you are guided to do. And even if it seems wacky, whatever you're guided to do, just do it and see what happens. That's the start. The next bit is just when there's a conversation and somebody wants to bag somebody or, bad mouth them. There's been an incident actually just recently where, I won't put names or anything, but there's a couple of people that have said things about some people, and it's only one side of the story. So if you're going to say one side, then make sure the other side is actually voiced as well. Do it that there is the duality, because there's always two sides to a story. Always. There's never one
Look
side.
for the duality. It's interesting that we're talking about this at this time, because that's the thing in America that's occurring that's so profound, is this duality of left and right, and let's say the bots or the whatever, the effort to try and make people be against each other. And you can walk into a room of people with the opposite viewpoint and it's like you've walked onto another planet, because their whole thinking is absolutely the opposite of, let's say you might have been in an echo chamber of something. So I've not yet come into the echo chamber that doesn't believe in the soil. Like, it seems to be a fairly universal thing that soil has to be healthy. But I have come across the odd person that says, no, all the soil needs to do is be a substrate for me to put a seed in, and I'll do the rest. I'll put the fertilizer, the chemical, the this, the that, and that's all that I need. It's basically hydroponic in soil. So there are obviously those that believe that. And I think this morning I had listened to Jordan Peterson, of all people, going on about how climate change wasn't real. There was actually 20% more green vegetation on the planet, and there was this out there. Now, I personally don't care, because my whole focus is actually about getting farmers paid. And I know nobody's going to pay them for the food and fiber they make relative to what, like slave labor in different countries and a whole gamut of reasons. And so my focus on the climate and soil and all those things is actually the hydrology of the planet, really, and that balance and making it possible for the planet to be able to do even more than it can do, like for it to thrive. That we get out of the way and stop blocking it.
Well,
Whatever we're
it's
doing.
interesting you say the hydrology. Like there's a lot of talk at the moment about, the quality of the water and that the water is bad for people and they need to buy all these expensive machines and whatever to change the quality of the water so that our bodies can actually receive the water and it can have a healing effect for us. Well, that's just another little bit, is that we are water. So if we're in balance, we can change anything that comes into our body, anything. So if we are water, which we are, aren't we? Like we're no different.
90%, something like that.
Yeah, we are the same as the planet. Like the planet and us are the same. We don't look the same, but how we function, it's just so similar. Like we have rivers and creeks and everything in us. We've got this fluid that flows through us, and without that, we can't exist. We're not alive. We're dead.
And we're part of the microbes.
We are the microbes. We are our skin. Everything that we see is all microbes. It's all microbes that are forming to be. Everyone talks about the gut as being microbes. Well, there's way more microbes than the gut. Everything is microbes. The whole system is microbes. But then I even want to go to the whole system is energy. There's either formed energy or there's unformed energy. So what if microbes are just formed energy? And yet there's this other substrate that's unformed energy. It's being able to work with the duality and the balance of that.
Does that mean that you don't take anything?
No, I eat food, drink water. I must admit, I'm not a big drinker of water, and I always think, why don't I drink more water? Sometimes I will, I'm thirsty, and sometimes I won't. But the food, I don't take any vitamin supplements. I am because I'm getting older, as you get to a certain age, your body starts to decompose. And so you have to work with your body in a different way. So once you've had your childbearing stage, you're in reproductive mode and your body sort of works a lot different. And it was a very wise women's health doctor that actually told me this. She said, do you realize that your body is in decomposing stage now? So you do need to look at your body differently. And I always had a bit of a thing with hormone replacement therapy. Your body does get to a point where it doesn't make enough estrogen or whatever. And if you need help to do whatever your body, because if you let your body deteriorate, it's like a soil. Whether someone is conventional or whether they're regen or whether they're natural intelligence farming, whatever, it really doesn't matter. If the soil needs help to get it to be functioning, then help needs to be provided. Once it's functioning, then it won't need the same things. And then it can be probably more regenerative because it is functioning. So we can't just go from less, unless you're like Ian and myself and have been working on this for a really long time, and you can go on to country and you can actually, because of other ways of looking at things, being able to understand from an energetic point of view, which does not get spoken of enough. And that's why I need to speak up, because that is so hidden in all of, and this is what I realized when I'm the only one that can speak this, because this is my part of the natural intelligence farming bit. It's not all about the physical side of things that you can see. There is a lot of other bits and pieces, but through the process, Di and Ian have got to understand things that they would never have understood along with myself as we grew together. And because of that, their beliefs are not what their beliefs used to be. And that's why they can go on to new country. It's not about what the crops look like as opposed to the conventional crops, or what people physically with their own, different people coming on see. There's a whole other thing that's happening behind the scenes that can't be seen, but it can be felt. And that is the difference.
Can I give an analogy of that? Oh, I'm getting this echo in your screen. It's like, the planet is doing things all the time. And so some days seeds will germinate because there's a wave of something. Maybe it's something atmospheric, or maybe it's, who knows, could be any number of things, but conditions are just perfect, and seeds that have laid dormant forever suddenly pop up. So like that, you could say you could maybe do the science on that, work out what that was. But there might be another level, which is maybe what you're talking about, which is why this is the question, where actually it's an energy field where it's waiting for you to feel it. And once you feel it, you become like a lightning rod that draws it into the world and makes it able to manifest. Because that's kind of what I intuitively feel that is what you're doing. But I might be wrong.
No, and it's all fine for you to explain it that way, because that's a way that it can probably be understood by many people. I just feel like right there, I've got it's come from within. So it's like
I meant the person is able to tap into it because it's already there, but you have to be able to get on the same wavelength with it. So it's the journey is through you, yes, but you're getting on the journey by opening up your wavelength.
Yeah, one of the probably biggest things, and it's something that Ian does say, is it's no expectations and get out the way. More than anything, the more that humans get out of the way of what the planet is trying to do, the quicker they'll see what the planet is capable of. The mentality out there is the planet needs to be fixed. The planet does not need to be fixed. And even if in some areas it looks broken, to some people, it's not about the planet. The only thing that needs to be fixed is the individual that is thinking that something needs to be fixed. So if something is
But
seen,
but isn't it that it needs to be fixed for them to be able to live there? For
no,
instance,
because
if you're in the middle of it, if you're in the middle of a desert and nothing's growing and the temperature's getting progressively hotter and hotter and hotter, say the Middle East is just turning into sand because you took away the substrate that was there, the plants, the animals, whatever. At some point you ate them all, which is what we've done
yeah, but the
over
people
and
did
over
that.
again. I'm saying that, but
Yeah.
we did that. So
Yep.
you want to be able to live there again. So you want to put those things back in again that were taken out of that environment. Yes, the environment might be fine for itself, but if you want to live there, isn't that the main point, that the human is trying to make it habitable for them to live there?
Yeah, but the people that live there that have turned it into a desert, if it wasn't a desert to start with, then they need to change something in themselves so that it can actually turn back into what it needs to be. So if it wants
they
to,
might be just doing the wrong thing.
yeah, but that's still, if they're doing the wrong thing, it's got to be something changed in them, because they might not see that they're doing the wrong thing. They might think that they're doing the right thing. And who am I? I'm not, who is anybody to judge and say that they're doing the right or the wrong thing? It's if we come back to ourselves, does this feel right to me that I'm doing this? There would be so many farmers out there, and so many that would go and do things, and they would go, and if they don't want to feel it, no way do they want to feel it. So it's best not to feel it. But if they allowed themselves to feel it, does this feel right to me to do this? They would get no. But they have to do what they do because it's about making money. And then
that's what I mean by living there.
Yeah, but it's still, what if it's not about that though? Like, look at our system. People talk billions of dollars now. If we go back to,
not farmers,
but the world talks billions. When you listen to
but
stuff,
the billions that they're talking about is just relevant. A billion is now what a million used to be, and a million is what 1,000 used to be.
Why is it that?
Because there's 8 billion of us, and so there's a different market force occurring. The market is a thing that determines that. It's not, I mean, the monetary value system, I mean, there's lots of things. I'm not going to get into that area at all because it's not my area. But
it's not my area either, but it's still something that people are striving. So everyone's striving for more and more.
They're not, I don't think they're striving for more and more and more. I think they're striving for enough to live comfortably without stress, because people are trying to get away from pain. The pain that they're experiencing is not being able to pay the rent this week.
I get all that, but they're trying to, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the system, as in that everything is just so expensive and everything is just so far out of reach for most people. Well, this isn't about farmers
that's political. That's got to do, you'll hear a lot of people talking about that on the internet, that it's a broken system, that it's greed, the greedy have gotten greedier. But at the level you and I are talking about, unless you're going to be starting to talking about being Svengalis, where we can change other people on the other side of the planet.
What's a Svengali? What's that? I haven't heard that term.
Somebody that can, when I change this person and they have to do what I'm saying from the other side of the planet. I'm just saying.
No, but we can change.
We can change ourselves, but
we can change ourselves. And what ripple effect that has, who knows?
All
But
right.
what
So
if the
imploring
changes?
you, Jane, to change yourself in such a way that the broken financial system fixes itself up. Whatever
Well,
part you're playing in keeping it in this way, you need to change.
well, I mean, but maybe it's not a broken system. Maybe it's the opposite of that. So
Maybe
that's
it's
again
doing what
that
it's meant
thing.
to be doing.
And
Yes.
that's where, sometimes we'll have a context. So this is definitely context because we're talking about something and we're both sort of, I'm not, financial side of things isn't my gig either, just like you said. But if we're looking at that, so if I go, yes, and I see it as a broken system, then I need to acknowledge that I see it as a broken system. That's fine. But then bring that back in me. Okay. Because that means there's something broken in me for me to see it that
I've
way.
done this. I got to tell you, I've done this, Jane, because
Yep.
it actually happened when I broke up with the children's parents, and I was watching a news thing about the Taliban stoning women to death. And I was so affected by it. And I went, if I can be affected by that, I need to be able to reverse that because I should be able to affect the opposite of that back.
Oh, because the thing is,
well, I'm just telling you what I was thinking.
Yep.
I'm not telling you what the yes or no of it was. I'm just saying that I realized that as part of the human race, as part of the sphere of this entire planet, whatever I was experiencing, I could generate the energy of the opposite in myself. That's what I was thinking. And
Yep.
it may affect them back there or not. I mean, I was watching something on a television. Obviously, they're not going to see it on a television. I wasn't talking physically. I was talking energetically. I am part of that person who's being stoned, the person throwing the stone, the person receiving the stone. I'm still on this planet. I'm still of the human race. They are still my species. So that to that degree, I was taking responsibility for it. And so I went, well, what can I do in this moment? And I literally, that's all I did was take responsibility. And my husband walked down from the house and said, I want to break up with you. And he was like, I can't. And his words were, I can't be on this journey that you want to be that's so big. Like, I was like, where did that come from? And he had suddenly, as my partner, become overwhelmed with the enormity of the responsibility that I was in my own head, not even talking to anybody.
Yeah, you're in your head.
I had changed something in me in that I was willing to look at that, and it totally freaked him out. Like,
Yep. But did you change that? So because you said then, did you change that in your head or did you
no,
change that in how you felt? So did you actually change
I
your,
actually changed my feeling. I
yeah,
changed everything about myself. I like felt myself into the universe. I felt myself with that woman on the other side of the planet.
yeah, but
I
see, you were
felt
going
into the,
outside yourself.
no,
That's
but
not
I'm
how I
saying
work.
I felt my connection to that.
Yeah, but that's still different to how I work. You're trying to understand how I work.
I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just telling you what I experienced in that moment.
Because everything you were doing was external. Like you were feeling yourself into that woman. Like you can't know how that woman felt. Only
No,
that
not at
woman
all.
would know.
No, maybe I'm expressing it wrong because I didn't
And
in
everything
any
when
way.
you're saying it like that.
I was, because I'm telling you about how I felt was as though I were the whole planet, as
Yep.
though I was the entire planet. Like, why limit myself to this physical body? I
Yep.
felt of myself as energetically part of the morphogenic field of the whole planet
Yep.
and of the species of humans and Homo sapiens and women and whatever I was, is what I looked at. And that if it could resonate and affect me, that I could take ownership for that. Look at that
Yep.
within myself. That's really what I said. I wasn't, you said, did I change my feeling? I changed the feeling in as much as I embraced it. I let it be in me, take responsibility for that. Look at it, be like, wow, yeah, I'm part of this whole world. I'm not just isolated. I am in the physical universe. I am in the human race. I am part of that woman. She is part of me, not external, but within my universe. They're all one, as what I was saying. And that's why I was so surprised when my husband walked out and said, I can't do this anymore. And I went, what do you mean? That was just that was in me. That wasn't you. I wasn't doing anything with you.
But on some level, because you expanded yourself, obviously, to the
It
point
affected
that,
him.
yeah, and most people are feeling outside themselves. So because they're feeling outside themselves, they're feeling everything that everyone else feels because that's what we have been taught to do. We are taught that. I learnt to change that in me. because that wasn't working for me. So I learned.
You don't feel what other people are feeling.
No, I don't. No. And that's why I use my muscle testing.
So let's just say I'm sitting in front of you and I'm.
I can't feel you.
No, but let's just say I was sitting in front of you in the physical room with you and I was feeling tremendous rage at you. You would not feel the energy hitting you at all.
No.
Even though I would actually have energy waves physically going at you.
No.
You wouldn't feel it.
No.
Wow.
No. Taught myself not to do that. The response, so there would be something I would feel in me, whatever that is, and then I would change that in me. Because that means then so there's an attracting thing there. So you can be attracting, so for instance, I could be tuned to attracting abuse. All right. So I could be programmed that I'm going to, or love. But let's just say, because abuse is probably a big one. And that personally has happened. So if I'm tuned to that, I'm going to attract that. But then I'm going to blame someone else for doing that. That wasn't changing anything for me to work like that. All right. And it was something that I attracted for a long time. When I started working on myself, I worked in that. I was abusing myself. And so once I changed that in myself, I didn't get rid of the abuse. The abuse is there. I just found the opposite of what that is, so that I had the polarities of both. So I know what abuse is, and I also know what the opposite is.
What's the opposite of abuse then?
For me, it's been so long, I don't really have a word anymore because it's not, but I remember when I did it. So the opposite of abuse for me would be, the word that comes is calm.
Calm.
Yeah.
As opposed to caring and love or something which is also external from somebody else.
Yeah, but that could be what someone else chooses. So you just asked me
my interest in that word that you chose is that those words I chose are also external. Somebody is abusing you. Somebody is caring and loving for you, but you're actually not saying that. You were saying, why was I attracting abuse? Because I was abusing myself. So the opposite of that is to be calm, because abuse must be fear. If you're feeling opposite of calm, with an energy field, calm.
Well, it can be, and then it starts to go down this whole thing, and you actually start to learn about yourself. And then the words play a role, but they play a role within you as to what they mean to you. And care, if I don't care for myself, I'm not going to attract care either. If I don't support myself, I'm not going to attract support. It's not that I'm looking for any of that.
What about people that are completely caring for themselves and loving themselves and doing, because I think there's very much of a me society. People have stopped actually caring or loving or being concerned for others. They're actually completely only interested in self. And, you hear it on all the waves, you hear it on, it's almost like looking after somebody else is irrelevant. And a little bit of how your discussion in this conversation is about nobody else matters but me. And I keep my universe, I'm not saying you're saying that, but my universe is the only thing that's relevant because that's what gives me the balance to be able to then assist others. But it does kind of abnegate the interaction with others a little bit in the discussion. So I'm curious how you balance that into
how how people speak. So you can care for yourself and you can still be caring of others. And then you can care for yourself and not be caring. So it's probably empathetic is the word.
We were talking about attraction though. So you were saying, how can I attract care from others if I'm not caring for myself? And I'm saying,
yeah, but do I want to attract care from others? So that's the other question. So do I want to? There's so many layers to this. It's not just, do I want to attract care from someone else? No, if I care for myself, I don't really need to. So I don't, and it's not that I'm not open to it. I'm not, but I don't have to have it.
No, but I think that's a relevant thing you're saying. So I think this me universe is so cared for themselves. They have the funds, the means, whatever. So therefore there is no effort to extend to others. And that is the thing that's observing in society is a lack of concern for anybody else because you just look after yourself and you don't want any or need anybody else.
Yeah. And then that doesn't mean people are happy. There can be people out there that have, got everything that they need. A lot of them are not happy. So at the end of it is, are you happy in yourself and are you happy doing what you're doing? If you are, there's nothing really, nothing else matters. But if you are as you say, me, and it's all about me and whatever, and you're not happy, well, then that's going to be reflected because it will be in the way they speak. It'll be, and they will feel like something's still missing. And yet all they're doing is it's me, 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 me. And let's just say they've got everything that they could ever want. This is where emotions can come in, because emotions are wants and needs. People, you learn that as a child, how to use your emotions to get what you want and need. And some people are bloody good at it. And they will have everything that they want and need, but they've got one thing that they don't have. And that is that they don't have that feeling of satisfaction within themselves, or, health. Health is so, so important to everybody. You can't buy health. Yes, you can buy good food and you can have all these things where you get massages and all these things that you can have when you've got money, but that doesn't necessarily make you happy either. And it's not about just being happy either. Like when I say that word, I straight away think of, well, what's my opposite to happy? Sad. It's okay to be sad and it's okay to be happy. You need both. So I might look at happy as a negative thing, and I might look at sad as a positive thing. I'm just putting it like that because that is what does happen out there. A lot of people go, gee, I look at happy as a positive thing and I look at sad as a negative thing. Everyone's going to be different. It's just about the both.
And some people wallow in the sad, and they wallow in the tragedy.
Yeah, but that's because they use that.
They love it. They love it.
And they're stuck in that though. And then that they don't necessarily want to be, I'm pretty sure they don't want to be stuck in it, but they don't know any other way. They are literally stuck. And that can be like left, right brain stuff where they're stuck in one. And then when they get a taste of the other, that seems so foreign. So they'll go from one side of the brain and they'll flick over to the other. And they think that's feeling. I feel happy today. And, and there's false happy. I know you would have seen it, right? And people will change negative feelings into positive feelings to feel better about themselves, but they're out of balance with that. So they've actually got something that should be negative and they've turned it into a positive, and it doesn't sit right in them because it's not addressed in the right way.
So it just seems like there's such a very small percentage of the planet that's going to be at this point of wanting to take responsibility for self.
Do you really believe that?
I don't know. I'm asking.
We should ask the question then.
All
Put
right,
the question out there.
The question
Put
is
the question
how
out
many
there.
people in the world right now, out of the 8 billion that exists, that are actually ready to take responsibility for themselves and take a journey like this?
Yeah, so it'd be good to know, feedback,
Yes.
feedback to come back to this. Who feels responsible and who doesn't feel responsible? Who wants to be responsible for themselves and who doesn't want to be responsible for
And
themselves?
I would also say that would also got to do with age group.
Yes, it might. It'll be
'Cause
interesting.
I think it's cultural as well.
Yeah.
There is a
And to
cultural
me,
shift.
I don't even want to think anything with that. I would be intrigued to know though. I would really be intrigued to know.
So we're going to ask the
Because-
viewers to write back. Are you
Yeah.
ready? Yes or no? That's the only thing you need to write. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
because
ready.
it would be,
No, I'm
wouldn't it
not.
be nice to know though, like most people just assume that this is what it is or this is what it isn't, rather than just asking the question.
Well, what do you feel?
Well, I don't feel about that because I can't. I can only feel with me. I sense, that would be a sense, not a feel. I sense from the people and it's all I can do, from the people that I have actually done work with, that there is a big percentage that has an awareness that they do need to be responsible for themselves, but they don't know how to do it.
But are they ready? I didn't say that. The question was willing to do it.
I reckon they are ready,
Okay.
but they're scared.
Yes, that's fine. That's another part of it. That's the
Yeah.
journey.
So
But
there's all
actually
these-
wanting to do it, you see, because my argument is that I think the Me Too, let's lay blame, don't want to do it. I think
but
they don't.
let's find out though. I would be intrigued to know, whoever listens to this, just all it is just sending a message back and saying,
Yeah, they can write it on the bottom of the podcast.
yeah, they
Yes
can just
or
whatever,
no.
yes
Just
or no.
yes.
Yes will be to what?
Yes is I want to know about how to take responsibility for myself. And yes, I want to be learning how to do that. And yes, that is I'm ready in the journey to not lay everything at everybody else's blame. Like we talked about the greed and corruption of the planet. I could say, well, much as everybody says it's just a small number of people that have created that, maybe that's true, but we're part of those people. We are those people. I mean, energetically, we're part of them. And I would say we're each and every one of us individually able to make that change.
Yeah, and then
We
the
don't
other way,
realize
yeah, the other way of looking at that is, you brought up a little thing earlier about a CEO taking on the responsibility. Whatever is supposedly looks like it's at the head of a business or the head of whatever, they're only as good as the team of people that they have working with them. Without that team of people, they can't be there.
True, but having run a restaurant with 500 staff, I've got to say that it's, even as a staff member, it was not me, it was the owner, the creator of that restaurant, which was my parents,
Yep.
and their philosophy, even if they never even really, certainly didn't talk to all the staff or run it or whatever, their energetic philosophy affected every single person in the restaurant that worked for it, to the point that any customer, raw customer walking off the street would feel what their energy was. It flowed through. And I've observed this in many businesses, that you can tell the attitude of the owner
Yep.
or creator of the business by whoever you meet in the restaurant. It's like it's their paintbrushes throughout the whole thing. Even when they are passed away and no longer there, the energy of that business that was the creation from those creators will
Yep.
continue on through
But
them.
it was created with that energy, wasn't it?
Exactly.
And
So
that's
I'm
why
saying you
some
can always
businesses,
tell what's
yeah, and
going
some
on.
businesses are successful and some are not.
Yeah,
And
but I mean, some people are successful with grumpy people. I'm not saying. I mean, there's every different type of person. I mean,
Yep.
have you ever seen Seinfeld with the soup kit, the soup Nazi?
And no, I've heard of it, but I haven't
Well,
actually.
it's very funny because he's lined up around the street. He makes this soup, and it's a little like hole in the wall. And he's called the soup Nazi because, and everyone's terrified of him. It's a very funny skit because they come in at a practice like this, and if you say it wrong, how you ask for the soup, he goes, "The shop, and you pan from the shop," and people, just this, please. It was like the soup Nazi, and yet queued round the block because we've got to go. Everyone will put up with whatever
Because the
they
soup
want.
was the soup was
Soup was
good
so
then.
good,
Yeah,
obviously.
okay. That they
Soup
put
was
up with whatever was going
amazing.
on.
They put up with whatever. But you have to sort of feel like the game of getting past the Nazi was almost part of the whole thing,
Yep.
like, because it was a challenge in itself because he was so bad. Anyway, it was an amusing thing from my viewpoint. I think anyone that follows Seinfeld might have actually saw the Soup Nazi episode. It's kind of one of those little things that happens, becomes a little classic there in terms of highlighting how people can put up with things or be attracted to things that are.
Well, if you feel drawn, so if the soup is drawing you in, you feel drawn to the soup. It doesn't matter about what's going on around the soup because you want the soup.
Yeah.
It's like when you feel drawn to go into a good restaurant, you just get drawn in there because you know that that's where you have to go. That's like that intuitive knowing that guides you. And yeah, it's really not about the people, is it?
Well,
When it comes to that.
It depends on what it is that's drawing you, doesn't it? I mean, that's kind of a little bit about what you're trying to say in your intuitive discussions is to follow that drawing, to follow that energetic attraction, and to listen to it and not abnegate it, not say that isn't there.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of, so some people might not line up for the soup, yet they really want it, but they won't take the time to go line up. So what are they missing out on? There's all those things that need to be factored in. So many. That's a funny story, though. I have heard that story.
So, is there anything I haven't touched on to feel like, well, is there anything we haven't brought up that you feel like we should have brought up?
The only thing keeps popping in is for some reason that blame.
Which we've discussed at the beginning.
We have discussed, but there is.
What do you think hasn't been touched on in that?
So if you see the word blame, if you visualize it just in your mind's eye, what jumps out at you?
Not wanting to look.
Not wanting to look.
Yes.
So that's what jumps out at you.
Yeah. So if I want to blame the rafter that it hit my head, like obviously I hit my head on the rafter.
Yep.
I want that bloody rafter. Why is it there? It shouldn't be there. That's kind of the ultimate level of what blame is. An inanimate object is to blame for something rather than you taking an awareness of the rafter being there and you've banged your head on it. So it's that kick the cat thing, I kicked the cat because somebody over there hurt me.
But what come out of it was not wanting to look.
Not wanting to look, yes. Because
so
that's why I used the rafter example. I didn't want to look up. I wanted to look down. So I hit my head on the rafter. So it's an external thing from self and an unwillingness to take on that. What an idiot am I? I don't want to don't want to be seen as the idiot. I want somebody else to be the idiot. So it wasn't me that created that problem. I didn't make myself make a whole lot of bad choices that made me broke. I didn't overspend over here or go down and use all my resources there or stay up late and get drunk, or I didn't do any of that. That's just something I have a right to do.
Yep.
Should be, everybody else does it. I should be able to do it too.
So, and what would there be anything wrong with being the idiot?
Well, that's what I would say people are most worried about, is because it's non-survivable on a tribal level to be an idiot. Like,
but so bring that. I'm just trying to show something here, because the talk will be to go out, which is perfect what you're saying, because you're trying to explain something to an audience,
yes,
right? And that's sort of what people choose to do, is they want to explain something to get an understanding out there. Whereas instead of doing that, just come back to not wanting to be an idiot. So when that goes to explain, come back, bring it in. What would it, if you brought it in as to be an idiot, not
Well,
wanting to be an idiot?
How would that be? It would be shameful to be an idiot. So
it would be shameful.
Shameful.
So is that a feeling that's inside you though? A shameful feeling?
Well, I'm pretty obsessed with not blaming things and taking responsibility for them. So I'm almost the opposite. But sometimes when I've discussed things with you, what keeps popping into my head is losing things. Now I lose my keys all the time, and I've done that all my life. I've always lost my keys. So I put in little systems like, you've got to put the keys in the key dish, no matter what, no matter who's distracting you, you must do it. And just the other day, I lost my key again. And this morning, before I spoke to you, I spent forever looking for these keys. And I remember going in and going, I was really tired. I walked in the door and I'd put them in an unusual pocket. And somebody distracted me as I walked in the door. And I remember going, I've got to get that key out of that pocket because I'm going to forget. And then I'm going to lose my keys. So I went to the pocket and I determinedly pulled the key out of the pocket, and I don't know how I put it or where I put it, but I lost the damn keys. And I have looked for 2 days for those keys. And today I pulled just before we talked, literally, I pulled a table away to go and stand up on something, and the key had dropped behind where my key dish is onto the ground underneath. So I'd still lost the keys. I'd still been 2 days looking for them, even though I am obsessed with making sure I put the key in the right spot. And I went, so that's me wanting to be so really trying to take responsibility for not being stupid. But a couple of times I have lost things recently that are really almost beyond my capacity. They've fallen out of a pocket, or they've just slipped down when I have put it in the right spot. And so I go, there is that desire in me not to be an idiot. And yet I still have somehow been a klutz.
Yep. But you're choosing that.
I'm choosing.
You're choosing to do that. So that's where owning that, and I'm choosing to do it, but it might not have anything to do with what this thinks it is. So all that come up with them was shame. So see the word shame.
Yes.
And when you see the word shame, what happens?
What happens when I see the word shame is, here I am given all these tools, and I have somehow been lazy in my thinking or my whatever. And so I have let myself down, and anybody that's given me those tools, my parents, my whatever. Not that they would blame me at all or make me wrong for them.
But just go to, so the first thing that come out is you've let yourself down.
Let myself.
So right there, because your whole mannerism started to change, right? And so you've let yourself down. How does it feel that you've let yourself down? Don't think, you look up. Don't think. It's not about thinking. So you look up. Like it's looking.
But you're asking me, how do I feel?
I know.
I feel,
and there might not be a feeling. So
stupid.
if you don't,
I just feel stupid.
stupid.
Like,
Okay.
I've been without thought. I haven't used thought. I've been absent-minded. Yeah, because you asked me, how do I feel? I said, because I feel in that moment that I haven't been thinking, because a lot of the time I don't think at all. I'm not thinking in the physical universe. I have to really put myself in the physical universe and keep thinking like people think.
And what if you're thinking that you need to be thinking, and what if it's that you don't need to be thinking? So what if
I don't think most of the time? That's why I lose things.
Yeah, but it might be that it's not about the thinking. It might be something else. And you could then be putting it on that it's about that you need to be thinking. Whereas what if it's completely different? And then you can go into all these words and you can try and understand it. Just going to, you said it made you feel like you were stupid. Yes. So what does it feel? What does it feel? Well, you don't have to answer me, but can you feel what it feels like in you to feel stupid?
Yes.
Yep. Touch where the feeling is.
My gut.
So it's in your gut, is it? Okay. And so then what's your opposite to stupid?
It's in my head.
Yeah. And
Clear thinking.
clear thinking.
Yeah, very in the moment, balanced, clear, everything's flowing the right way. Feels great.
Okay, so you feel clear when you're in your head, but you feel stupid when you're in your gut.
Yes. Well, no.
No, that's just what you that so
I really, that's not quite right though. You said, where do I feel stupid when I say the word stupid? And I would say in my gut, but I don't feel those as the opposite of each other. I don't feel my gut is stupid because let's say.
but I didn't say that. See, this is where things will get taken out of context, because what it was is, where's the feeling of the stupid, right? And you said, you looked and you went, it's in my gut. That's a feeling. So the stupid feeling is in your gut. That's all it is. There's no words that need to be put to it. And then it was, what's the opposite? And you said, it's in my head. All right. And you said it's clear, whatever. So that's
Well,
your opposite.
I would say the opposite is one is I'm in present time, and the other is I'm
That's your
not
head
in present
talking
time.
now.
Well, I'm just saying the sensation for me.
No,
Let's say when I lose things, I'm not thinking in the physical universe.
But this isn't about losing things now. This is about something that's come just within you. Okay. So all you've done is just brought something back to you from where you were talking about your keys. And through a process, you got to where I feel stupid, which was about your keys, probably. Or it could be about other things. It could be many things, not just about the keys. And the feeling was in your gut. And then the opposite, you didn't even need to say a word. It was like the opposite straight away for you was in your head. But then it's like you felt like you had to explain something. So it already was the opposite. And then it's like, no, but that's not right. That's not right. So then you're like dumbing it down, or you're doing something where you're going, no, hang on, that can't be right. So it's almost like, oh, gee, I felt that in my head and I felt that in my gut. But on some level, you don't want to feel that because you want to change it rather than just going.
No, it was not that. Is that it went from a specific example of something to a general. And I don't always feel that.
No, but it wasn't about always. This is just in the moment, right then, in the moment.
In that moment, yes.
And that's all because we can't be, there's no past, there's no future, because the future is not created. And all it was, so it is actually hard for you to be in the moment to work through something. Do you understand that?
Yes, totally.
Right. And that's right where, in that moment, when you had the feeling in your gut, the feeling in your head, you need to put a stop on yourself. So you need to stop yourself there and just sit with those feelings. And that's all you need to do to start with.
Okay.
Okay. Because until you can learn to do that, there's no point going any further.
Right.
Okay. Because it's like you just didn't want to even, it's like straight away you're looking for the next thing. And now, and whatever those two feelings are, yep, the word stupid was used and there was an opposite. Doesn't mean that just has the word stupid attached to that feeling in your gut. It was one word that got you to that feeling. So there could be many words that generate that feeling within you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it's just sit with them and see what happens.
Okay.
All right. And then, see how long you can sit with it. Then we'll talk again later when it's right. I'll know when to call you, and then we'll go further.
Okay. Sounds like a
sense?
plan. Yes, it makes sense.
It makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's just sitting with a couple of feelings. And the other bit to add to that is we have monoculture and we have diversity. I think most people on the planet can understand what monoculture is and what, let's say, diverse culture is. Most people can only feel one feeling, which is monoculture. And until they are able to get to the point that they can feel diverse feelings, we've only really talked about duality. It's a whole nother level to go yet. Yeah, until they can get to that, there is no diversity.
I would use it. Another word I would use, which I think we touched on at the beginning, about self-determined, taking responsibility for oneself. Self-determined.
We touched on that. Yeah, well, we didn't say the word self-determined. That's you're putting that word in now.
That's my word, self-determined. Yeah. But the opposite of that, or the expansion from that, let's say you're born as a baby and you learn self-determinism, or you learn self-determinism is a little bit down the track. But I was sort of referencing this ability to take responsibility for self and then others as you expand in your consciousness. So ultimate, along the lines of what you were just touching on, is pan-determined, where you can feel into the sensation of all consciousness at all different levels and feel a resonance in it as an energy field. Like, I'm not saying you're responsible for the world, but rather your role as you in it is there. That is a pan-determinism across all walks of your own survival in the world. You are survive as a self, you survive as a relationship, family, groups, plant animal kingdom, physical universe, spiritual
See, I don't
universe.
resonate to that talking. I just can't resonate with it for some
Yeah, but
reason. I'm just
that's
being
fine.
honest.
I'm just telling you how I resonate with it. And I'm saying that my awareness of different levels of things that you're speaking about for me is like that, is that as you become more happy with yourself, more willing to expand within yourself, like to take responsibility or be okay with yourself in the world, the more you're willing to be in those spaces. Like, even like I would say, a lot of people are scared about being in the world, in the physical world, scared about being outside of their room, being on the land, in the water, being in the physical universe, because they think the whole physical universe will attack them, rather than being of the world and of the physical universe and being okay with all of it. So
Yeah,
it's
but that's
kind
a
of,
fear. That's a fully pledged fear, isn't it? That's
yeah,
huge. And
yeah,
I would say that a lot of people do feel like that.
yeah. So
That's all they can. That's all they can feel.
yeah. So about the only time I can get to that sense of fear, because I don't feel those things, is if I expand myself into thinking of myself in space, like really feel out into space, into the infinity of space. That's about the only time I can get into overwhelm from a physical body point of view.
So why don't you just feel that internal in yourself instead of going out, go in?
No, I'm just saying experimenting
Yep.
with where do I feel fear. I don't generally feel fear in any of those things other people do feel fear in, but I can feel it if I go into the sense of space. Like, I wouldn't want to get into a spaceship and travel around in space. That does not appeal to me at all.
So then how I talk about once you find the duality,
The
like the
parameters.
positive and the negative, then part of my work with people is then that they do find space within themselves. So you saying what you're saying now, that could potentially, if somebody like yourself has a fear of space, like going into a spaceship and going out into space, that could resonate internally in finding space internally could be fearful.
Yeah, that could be the duopoly. I could have not looked at that and failed to look at what is the opposite of that, the micro space to the macro space. Yeah, I see that. I
Yeah.
haven't looked at it, but I'm just saying, yeah, I can see that. That could be why I don't look inside viruses within my own body, the
Well,
micro.
yeah, but it could also just be why you just don't want to look in and find the space within because there's a fear of finding that space within. Because it's no different. What's out there is in here. So, yeah, it's,
For the body, for the physical body,
well, that's how I see it. That's how I see it is we've got it.
use yourself as being all as one.
No, I don't even really look at it like that. It's just there is space in me and I've got to create the space. Once upon a time, there was no space in me because everything was just all fused together. But
Yes, I
there's
don't
space.
understand
I
that.
can create
I
the
have no understanding of that.
no, well, so in me is heaps of space, lots
Yes.
of space. There's polar opposites and there's all this space. And then
But
that
space, what do you mean though? You don't mean physical space.
space, yeah, it's space. It's just room to move. There's infinite possibilities. There's infinite possibilities within me. I can choose to do whatever I choose to do.
Yeah, but that's not, I mean, that's not, I'm sorry. I was talking about physical space as in, can I fit into my body, or can I fit, or can I expand?
Yeah, but is it the same thing though? Like it may seem that it's
know.
different, but is it the same?
I don't know. It's an idea.
I
That's a
know.
thought.
Yeah. But is it like, just because it's that, what's to say that that's not the same? Something,
be.
yeah, it's looking at, yeah, it's, there's so much that just we look at things one side, but we don't look at it from another perspective.
Okay, so the biggest thing that I've got as a takeaway from this, to surmise your points, is that looking at the opposite, apart from blame, looking at the opposite of something that you are feeling as a sensation, in whatever way. You don't want to look at something,
And it doesn't have to be it doesn't even have to be a sensation. Just learning, like a lot of people are just got to get through the head bit first. So
just the
looking
opposite.
at the opposite in head and what happens when you do, and can you do it? Because some people can, some people can't, and some are just programmed to just look at it one way, which is monoculture.
That's a very good start, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a start, and everybody can start working on that.
There we go.
I don't need to speak
That's
to
enough.
anybody to do that. No, That's very simple to do that. Well,
Well, anyway,
I
thank
think
you,
it is.
Jane, for another spot into this.
And how long did we go? How long did we go this time?
Well, 2 hours. Oh my God, I'm
My
never.
gosh.
All right, so we're going to end at this point. Thank you, Jane.